for guidance in the matters at hand in the meeting before us. And lastly, you'd clearly show us how to conduct our work with this joy and enthusiasm and dedication. Give us the desire to continue to find better ways to excel in our work for our community. Help us to work together and encourage one another to excellence. We pray today for those in our borough and on this council affected by COVID. We all look forward to a brighter future. We ask that we would challenge each other to reach higher and farther, to be the best that we can in all that we can do, for the sake of those we serve. Amen.
Amen.
Kevin, thank you very much. Very good. Now, I now have to read my clarification. Can everybody hear?
Yeah.
This meeting is to be run as a remote conference on Zoom. Any member participating by remote link who declares an interest in any item of business in terms which requires them to leave the room must ensure that they cannot be seen or heard during the agenda item. This shall be confirmed by Democratic Services. This member of staff will thereafter confirm to the remote member when they may rejoin the meeting. Should any aspect of a conference link fail during this meeting, I will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the link can quickly be re-established. If the link cannot be re-established, the meeting shall be adjourned to a later date. In the event of link failure for individual members, the remote member or members will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure of the equipment. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the item providing the meeting remains quorate. Should the meeting no longer be quorate, the meeting should be adjourned and any remaining items of business will be deferred. If the individual member's link is successfully re-established, then the remote member or members will be deemed to have returned at the point of re-establishment. I would ask members to indicate their wish to speak by raising their hands using the raise hand function on Zoom. With support of Democratic Services, I will then invite each member in turn to make their contribution to the debate. All microphones will remain on mute at all times, except mine and those of relevant officers. Members may unmute themselves when invited to speak, and all microphones will be unmuted before proceeding to a vote. Before proceeding to the vote, I will ensure that all members and officers have no further comments by confirming with Democratic Services that no hands are raised. If any member wishes to raise a point of order, the member should unmute themselves and clearly state their name, followed by point of order, i.e. Councillor X, point of order, Mr. Mayor. I will then ask the member to specify the point of order that they wish to raise. Any member who's been absent from the debate due to connection failure must abstain from the vote. Please turn your mobile phones to silent and note that the meeting will be recorded and live streamed on YouTube. May we start with apologies for absence. They have been received from Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, sorry to bother. There's a lot of members that ain't on mute. They ain't on mute, all members.
Can all members, I think, Natasha, can you do that? We've got Ken or Catherine or someone. Can you mute all members? We've got Councillor Chandler, Illingworth, Cumbers, Child, De Burl, who are not on mute. If you could mute yourselves, that'd be helpful because there is a bit of background noise. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Fisher. Can any member wishing to give apologies for another member indicate that they wish to do so by using the raise hand function? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just had a telephone call from Councillor Pearson to say that he's having difficulty connecting. He's been trying to contact Natasha, but it keeps bouncing back. So at the moment, he's not able to connect into the meeting. I don't know whether anybody might be able to help and give some assistance.
I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, I've spoken to Natasha and I've asked her to try and ring Alan. So I think that's why she was slightly held up before.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. Officers are trying to contact Alan to address those issues.
Now, have we got Councillor Smith with us?
Don't believe so, Mr. Mayor.
In which case, can we give her apologies? And that would be our Mila as well. For minutes, this item, I'll seek a mover and a second to confirm the minutes, which will be in email to members. Councillor Orson, will you move?
Yeah, very happy to move the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Higgins, can you second?
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor, but I do notice Councillor Evans has his hand raised.
All right, Councillor Evans. Yeah.
Yep, I believe that Councillor Phil Wood has sent his apologies in. I just wanted to confirm that that was the case. It came through, I think. I got a copy of it.
Thank you very much. Councillor, can that be noted?
Yes, I'm sure that can be noted, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, I think Natasha's having an issue, but yes, that's certainly be noted, along with Councillor Fishers, who were submitting in advance as well.
Hopefully, Councillor Graham, you can hear me now. Hopefully, I think.
Oh, good. Yes, we can.
That's
Well done,
okay.
Natasha.
Great. Okay. Apologies for that.
Have you managed to contact Australia?
Catherine is just in the process of doing that now.
Thank you. So anyway, the minutes have been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? None against? Thank you very much. Declarations of members of interests. A member with a personal interest must declare the interest at the beginning of a meeting, but can take part in the debate and vote. A member with disclosable pecuniary interest or pecuniary interest has to declare it and cannot take part in the debate or vote in the matter, and as such must disable their microphone and video functions for that item. A personal interest in respect of County Councillors Orson, Pearson and Posnett is taken as being on record for any matters which relate to the Leicestershire County Council. Have we got any other matters of interest? Councillor Brown?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would like to declare a person of non-pecuniary interest in item number 12. As I am Secretary of Frisbee Hobby and Rotherby Cricket Club, and we received some grants through the COVID scheme. And if there is any other discussions through the meeting, it would also be relevant to those points. Okay.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask a question now? Because I'm chairman of Sproston Village Hall, and we've been very grateful for grants we've received. Should I declare an interest, and should I take part in that part of the council meeting? I look at the Chief Executive.
Mr. Mayor, that item is for noting only of a decision already taken to process grants. So we're entirely happy to note that interest, but I don't believe there'll be a need for you to recuse yourself from any discussion.
Great, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
I'd like to declare a personal non-pecuniary interest as a member of Great Dalby Cricket Club in relation to item 12 business grants. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
I can't see who's got a hand up, but I can see Councillor de Burle's hand up.
We have Councillor Graham. We have, just to confirm,
Yes.
we've got Councillor Child, Councillor de Burle, and then Councillor Carter is also indicating.
Right, let's have Councillor de Burle, and then we have Councillor Carter. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yep.
Okay. I'd like to declare a personal and non-pecuniary interest in item 11 as RFO acting under delegation for Asperby Parish Council and signatory to their precept.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Carter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have interest in the Appendix 1, 2.2.1 on page 70 of rent increase. I believe in the meeting.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Carter. Any other
Also,
interest?
Mr. Mayor, sorry. I'm having problems all the time. When you raise hands, I go down to the section and there's no hands button there on the right-hand side again. Every time I log into it, There's no hand signal down the right-hand side for hands raised.
Oh, I've got one. Well, wave at Natasha.
Yeah,
And
okay.
we'll see
Thank
how
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, did you
yes.
record my interest, please?
I believe we did, Natasha. Have we recorded Councillor Child's interest?
I didn't catch Councillor Child's interest. I do
Oh.
apologise.
Thank you.
No, Councillor Child, can you repeat it?
Sure, certainly.
hear.
I wish to declare a personal non-pecuniary interest as a member of Great Dalby Cricket Club in relation to item 12, business grants. Thank you.
And while at it, Natasha, did you get my one as chairman of Spruceland Village Hall?
Yes, Councillor Graham, I have that one.
Mayor's announcements. As you can imagine, not a lot has happened since the last meeting. I did do a virtual piece over Christmas and was part of the Radio 103VI Christmas service, which was very kind of them to do. But I think really the most important thing from all councillors' point of view is to congratulate Councillor Smith on the arrival of Yamila, which is very exciting. And I wish them both well on behalf of the whole council. Leaders' announcements. Leader, have you got some announcements?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and obviously congratulations to Rebecca and the whole family from all of us. It's a long, long time since a member of this council had a baby as a serving councillor. I think I can seem to remember one, Alan Jackson's wife. What was the first name? Billigan. Anyway, Alan Jackson's wife, she had one. That must have been in the 1990s now. So it's a long, long time. So we move on. Good.
Not to bring Yamila to a meeting where the public are excluded.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Are you going to advise Councillor Smith not to bring Yamila to a meeting where the public are excluded? As happened with Kashmir when she brought her baby to a meeting.
That's right, Kashmir. Yeah, that first name, wasn't
she
it?
was made to take the baby out.
Yeah, it's a long, long time ago. And congratulations to you, Mr. Mayor, for completing near enough 3 years as mayor of this borough now. You're the first one to have done 3 years. Maybe not the last one, but certainly the first one anyway. Mr. Mayor, just a few announcements of what's topical at this moment in time, or notifications as it's billed as. It does remain a very busy time as we continue to provide support to our communities and businesses impacted by COVID. I was delighted to see Leicestershire was leading the way in the proportion of over 70s who have been vaccinated. And I'm sure this will have been helped by Melton having one of the first vaccination centres open in the region. Our Community Support Hub continues to provide assistance to the most vulnerable in our community, and our team has made nearly 2,300 separate business grant payments totaling £4 million since November. This is on top of the £10.7 million paid out to businesses earlier in 2020. I want to reiterate my thanks to all officers and members for their incredible response and support to our communities during the pandemic. Mr. Mayor, we are now digesting the Prime Minister's announcements from Monday and preparing to support the easing of restrictions over the coming weeks and months. I do welcome the cautious approach, and we must remain vigilant and maintain our commitment to public health guidance and regulations. Tonight, we consider our budget, and I am delighted that despite all we have faced this year, we have managed our finances well and are able to propose a budget that protects existing services and is balanced for the second year in a row. We are also still able to invest in key priorities to support our corporate strategy and recover from COVID. Key initiatives including developing a new town centre strategy and master plan, along with a number of maintenance improvements. Helping rural businesses through a £100,000 diversification grant scheme and supporting vulnerable residents through more council tax relief. We want to invest in our IT, our website and audio visual equipment so we can continue live streaming our meetings when we can once again meet in person. We want to repair the Footstone Bridge in our country park, and with an array of national partners, we'll be developing a business case for rail improvements between Nottingham and Melton. All this alongside the ongoing and continued investment in council housing services as part of our ambitious improvement plan. I look forward to discussing these proposals with all members later in the meeting. Mr. Mayor, following the recent LGA review, we are developing an action plan which I will be keen to share with all members shortly for wider review. One of the early actions has been setting up meetings for myself with ward members to understand any local issues and consider how the Cabinet can assist. I've certainly found the discussions extremely useful, and I hope those members I've met so far have too, and I look forward to those continuing. On the MMDR, we continue to work with our partners at the County Council, Homes England and MHCLG on seeing if an infrastructure agreement can be reached to secure the Housing Infrastructure Fund. Yesterday, we received the draft heads of terms from the County Council, and we are now reviewing this and considering the legal and financial implications and risks associated with it. Mr. Mayor, this is a crucial piece of work, and as ever, we will do all we can to support delivery of the road, but we must ensure any agreement is right for this council and right for Melton. I will update members on this shortly, and again, we are intending to formally consider the council's position on this issue at our Cabinet on the 17th of March. We have also shared our draft developer contributions, SPD, with the County Council, which, as they have requested and to support their infrastructure investment being paid back, prioritise the recovery of highways and education contributions above other things. We await their feedback and also are planning to bring the consultation draft to Cabinet at the 17th of March meeting. Whilst referring to the County Council, it is again regrettable that when we are negotiating on the most important infrastructure agreement for a generation, they chose to attack this council regarding the recent land disposal decision taken by our Cabinet in January. I welcome the review being undertaken currently by our scrutiny chair and vice chair, as we believe any such review will show a reasonable basis for our decision and appropriate way we have conducted ourselves. Given the ongoing review, I do not think it would be appropriate for me to say too much at this stage, but irrespective of the findings, the language used to attack this council and our officers was completely inappropriate, and there was absolutely no justification for it. We, as ever, will conduct ourselves in the right manner, and I will have more to say at the appropriate time. But until then, I look forward to receiving the findings of the review from Councillor Cumbers and Councillor Bindloss. Mr. Mayor, finally, I was delighted to see we were recently successful in securing a £340,000 grant to improve the energy efficiency of our council housing stock through the government's Green Homes Delivery Scheme. We will be matching this with a further £300,000 to deliver improvement works to nearly 70 properties through either external insulation or fitting solar PV panels. This programme will help to support tenants who can find heating their homes expensive and help to reduce fuel poverty. It also represents a positive step towards our commitment to become a carbon neutral council by 2030. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Very good. Public question time. There were no questions received. In accordance with regulations, any vote at tonight's budget meeting will be taken as a recorded vote. Councillor de Burgh will move and Councillor Orson will second the recommendations set out below on the order paper. Councillor de Burgh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members, the SIPFA Prudential Code for Capital Finance in Local Authorities requires that the Chief Finance Officer produces a capital strategy report on affordability and risk associated with any forward programme, and that the report is presented to and approved by Council. This report, entitled Capital Programme 2020-25, General Fund and HRA and Capital Strategy 2021-22, is a comprehensive and wide-ranging report with the bulk of the information encompassed within 9 appendices. That's A, B, B1, C, D, E, F, FI and FII. The main considerations of the report, Mr. Mayor, are shown at 5.1 for the General Fund, where it can be seen that the forecast outturn for 2020-21 General Fund Capital Programme is expected to be 923,000 against an approved budget of 1.315 million, resulting in an underspend of 392,000. This is due to a reduction in demand for disability facilities grants, 342,000, and deferring 50,000 expenditure, which was planned on service vehicles, pending more information on environmental changes. And at 5.4 for the HRA, the forecast outturn on the HRA for 2020-21 is expected to be 3.589 million against the latest approved budget of 5.291 million, resulting in an underspend of 1,702,000. In this case, it's largely due to the influence of COVID-19, which caused accessibility issues with the people working in that area. Members, at 5.5, we look ahead to our 2021-22 capital programme. The proposed capital programme for 2021-22, outlined in Appendix A, totals 755,000. It covers key areas such as ICT investment, DFGs, and management of key council assets and community investment. Members will be pleased to note that a number of new key capital schemes have been put forward for your approval, totaling £267,000. They are Council Chamber audio and visual equipment redo, a replacement website system CMS, and the Melton Country Park Bridge works already mentioned by the leader. Mr. Mayor, members are also aware that the content of this paper has been consulted on with the Scrutiny Committee, who drew attention to the need as part of the COVID recovery plan for additional business support within the rural community. I'm pleased to report that the Rural Business Diversification Grant Scheme, valued at £100,000, already mentioned by the leader, has been built in to meet the recommendation. That you can see that on chart item 5.7. Members, approving the capital programme will support the council in delivering its commitment to manage its assets effectively and to ensure that the benefits from them are maximised for the benefit of the council and community as a whole. These capital plans will support the effective delivery of those ambitions and will ensure appropriate levels of capital expenditure and investment are in place to meet our corporate priorities and objectives, whilst ensuring that plans are affordable, prudent and sustainable. And I move that Council approve the proposals at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 and 2.7 of the paper. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. Have we got a seconder for that?
Yeah, I'm very pleased to second 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. Just say a few things as well. I did think about withholding my comments, but I think I may as well say them. I particularly welcome the council chamber audio visual equipment, £80,000 worth. I'm well aware of officers have been hunting around for the best scheme. It's strange, a few years ago, we did have a vote. I can remember Mark Twitty raised this, and it was simply, it wasn't quite the right time, and the money involved was just big. In some ways, the equipment needed has become far more effective at a more competitive price. But the reality is, what COVID has done is it has exposed lots of things. And one thing it has exposed with this council, and I'm sure all the other councils, including Hunforth Parish Council, has a demand for people who want to watch And we all know that there was one evening, I think it's 300-400 people early on watched the parish council meeting. That shows a massive demand. Now, if we want to continue doing this, once we go back to live meetings, we simply have no choice. If you want to have hybrid meetings, if you want to beam out to YouTube, we've got to go down this line. So I particularly welcome this. Just on another front, I'm absolutely over the moon about two other things. I've mentioned both of them, and so is Ronnie, but the country park, the refurbishment of the Footstones Bridge, I know it well. I often walk over it myself. I haven't done it in the last 12 months, I've got to be honest. But this has all been brought about by the lobbying for a number of, quite a long time now, the patch councillors in no particular order, Margaret Lansing, Pam Poslet and Simon Lumley. So congratulations to them. I'm absolutely delighted they can report to their residents what they've achieved. And also this council, sometimes, I personally, one of my ward meetings, the members were quite critical of what we do for the rural areas. And yet here we are, Mr. Mayor, 100,000 capital grant, rural business diversification grant. So absolutely delighted to second Councillor de Boer's proposal.
Thank you very much, Leader. Now, opening up to debate. Can people please, who want to speak, share their hands?
We have Councillor Carter and Councillor Evans.
Councillor Carter.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I've got to disagree with the leader of the council on this sound system. The times are hard. £80,000 for a new sound system and upgrading to do YouTube and that. This system, what we've got in place now, was designed to stream meetings, right? I don't think it's a time to put a new sound system in when people's losing their jobs. We're struggling for money. We've gone without it for a year. I don't agree. I'm sorry. I don't agree with this new system at the time. Look at it next year in the new budget, but this year we should leave it. It's half a year gone. We're not going to get into the council chambers till at least end of June. And I think we should think it's, to me, no, not 80,000. I'm sorry. That's my opinion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor de Boer, would you like to reply to that?
No, I really don't have a lot to say, Mr. Mayor, in response, other than the fact that councillors have spoken on many occasions. In fact, Councillor Carter, I remember him running around trying to make the current system work on occasions when it wouldn't work for us in meetings, and we had to slow the meeting down. I actually think now is a time to move forward with it, because then we will be in a position to maintain communications with the general public that they're becoming used to on this system of that we use at the moment, the Zoom meetings.
Can I just come back, Mr. Mayor, please? Oh yeah, thanks for that, Ronnie. It's just a quick question. Yeah, thanks for that, Ronnie. But you're going back to the old system. Yes, I used to work the old system and that. But the thing is, okay, if we're going to go for this system, are we going? Are all the members going to have the right training, the right equipment, and the right thing going down the right road? Because when we got this system before, members didn't know how to use it properly. There wasn't proper training. Is it going out to tender for 3 things? Because this system wasn't put in right. And we've got to understand, Ronnie, this system, what we put in the first place, was with the old system for the old council offices. So it wasn't a brand new system. We was playing with a new and an old system.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bell, could you come back on that?
Yeah,
Training.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, you know only too well, Steve, that the amount of times that meetings were interrupted and disrupted, and you had to run around looking for batteries and get things working. So, and you were part of the council at that time, so you will know better than I. But I still think that as a professional council, the public will expect us to operate in a professional way, and so I hold by my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Evans. Councillor Evans. We move on to
Hello there.
Wilkinson.
One of the most.
Oh, hang on.
I'm here now. Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. one of the infuriating things is with a system, there's no such thing as a perfect, and I just got a text message appeared right over the button that said mute, unmute, which made my situation impossible. Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. It's not as good as being in the chamber with you, I'm afraid, Mr. Mayor. Let's be clear, as the leader of the opposition, this is as is all council debates, this is a free vote. On this particular issue, I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Steve Carter. I cannot stress enough, and I think our Prime Minister agrees with it here, we are in an extraordinary situation here and have been now for nearly a year. Yet this council, although in some areas, especially in the people, what I call the people officers, in particular the ones who work in Phoenix House, are still carrying on as though everything is as normal. In particular, the Cabinet are. This is not normal. This will not be normal. I know lots of people who lost their jobs, lots of young people who are trying to find jobs and won't find them, lots of people who are going to be kicked out on the streets soon. And here we are carrying on with the same budgets and the same thing. This is the problem. I have no problem in normal times spending 80,000 on an audio-visual system. I have no problem at all with that. 50,000 on a Christmas tree in the middle, I have some problem with, but let's leave that one for now. I have problems with things carrying on as normal. And in particular, we all know we had this big debate 6 months ago, I think it was, where allowances were put up in the middle of all of this. We have a responsibility as a council to set an example to the people that are hurting out there. And there are people that are hurting every day, 100,000 plus dead, more and more people jobless. The economy, even the Prime Minister says, will go through a very bad period for the next year at least. We as a council have to reflect that and not have a normal budget, but have an austere one that means that we have the reserves to actually get us out of this mess if a mess does ensue. Not spend 80,000 on an audiovisual, 40,000 on a bridge, and then suddenly find we're desperately trying to help people and have no money left to do so. This is about people, and people are suffering in this country at the moment. And I hear nothing from the leader and nothing from anybody so far about the fact how hard this country's, how many people that, I don't know, how many people in this council don't know someone who's died alone? I do. I know 3. And it is tragic times, and we need to reflect that and be humble in what we do. We're not doing that anymore. And this is what worries me greatly. It's just like with Phoenix House. Suddenly we decide we're going to move it, move the people in it, just in the middle of a pandemic, when they're almost certainly, and the charities involved in it are going to be working their hardest for the next year. Suddenly, just before Christmas, it's announced by our leadership, they've decided to step in place, moves out of Phoenix House. What bad timing can you have? How could you possibly want to do that? And then here we have a budget with for a future what for? Melton Centre. I just heard the leader say, the master plan for Melton. Why haven't we got one? Where is the master plan for Melton? What's been going on? Scrutiny is doing the work for me at the moment of the cabinet. We're looking into the policies of actually recovery. Who's going to scrutinise what we come up with? I'll give it to Pat Cumbers and her team. They got the voice together. But hold on a second, who scrutinised the results? We as a council are getting it all the wrong way round. Scrutiny is meant to be a critical friend to policy. I see no policies coming out of this cabinet. There should be policies coming from this cabinet and this budget fund to actually recover things, but there aren't. When was the last time our cabinet met with the town estate, met with BID? I know the answer to that because we've done the interviews. This is so negative and not going forward. Lake Terrace was mentioned. What a mess beyond belief. We didn't inform our nearest partner and our leader as a county councillor that we had a ransom strip. Almost certainly, I've done the sums. It doesn't take long. If you do the Google and do the work, You can do it in about half an hour. We have a ransom strip there that's been undervalued by £1 million probably. How disgraceful for that to happen and not to be reported to us as members. I'm sorry, all of this is really getting me fed up with this council, and I am, because we're just going from one mistake to another. We're not learning. Scrutiny is not scrutiny at the moment, and I don't blame one member of scrutiny. It's because Cabinet are defaulting on what they should be doing. They're getting us to do the rescue and recovery. That should be, the policy should come from Cabinet. I see nothing in this budget or this fund that says this is what we're going to do. These are the deliverables. These are the timeframes. MMDR has been going on for, well, how many times have we been through this loop? Our leader is not only a leader of this council, he's also meant to be a member of the county council. Yet communication seems to still be at zero. We have letters going back and forth and back and forth. And let's be blunt about it, even if this deal does go through, where's the level of trust between us and the county council now? I would say it's close to non-existent. As the leader at long last said in this speech, at long last, he's actually said what everybody believed, which was what was said by the county council was unacceptable. I don't know it's unacceptable. We're still waiting to hear if what the leader of the county council said was true or not. I've asked for a scrutiny review. I've not got one because it's been pushed into the long grass. We're a week on, nothing back. I'm sorry, but leader and cabinet, to me, this is unacceptable. And please don't even mention to me what's happened in Statham just recently. I have an area which is out of control almost and believes that this council cannot control anything anymore. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor de Burl, would you like to come back on any of those points?
Not really. Yeah. Mr. Mayor, thank you. It's,
thank you.
Councillor's usual ball of sunshine. I wouldn't even want to try and attempt to answer half of the things he talked about. So thank you very much.
I've got Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to counter some of the remarks that Councillor Carter and Councillor Evans have made with regards to this sound and recording system. You know, Councillor Evans talks about people hurting. You know, I'm hurting. I sit in this exact same room for 40 hours a week, looking at the exact same screen with little to no human interaction with anybody apart from my fiance. The sooner we can get out of our houses and back to having, you know, in-person meetings, the better for people's mental health like mine. If you want to sit at home on a Zoom call on a hybrid system, then that's fine. But you need to consider other people's situations like mine. You know, the sooner I can get out of this room and get out into the real world, the better. And we need to invest in this. We're probably one of the only councils in the country that doesn't have these systems in place. And we're very much behind the times. And we need to get with the modern world and everything that comes with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Cumbers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm sorry that Councillor Evans has started talking about Lake Terrace, and this. I think he actually said that he'd asked for a review and hasn't yet had it. Of course, he hasn't had it. Any review is for scrutiny committee, not for Councillor Evans. But on the 16th of February, I wrote to Councillor Evans about the two allegations he'd made to scrutiny. And the first one, that the council never informed the county council about the potential requirement with the ransom strip. And I said in my email, I explained that I'd already seen the evidence that that was untrue. So I'm really shocked that he thinks it's okay to bring that up tonight when he knows very well that what he said was untrue. I don't believe he deliberately lied, but it was untrue. But I'm sorry, we're here talking here about money and finances, and as ever, Councillor Evans wants to drag in such a sort of stuff which is really not important, not tonight when we're talking about the finances. Talking about going to the audio visual. I mean, I'm looking back, I'm surprised all those years we put up with the rubbishy system that we had in the past, but we managed. But now we've got legal requirements and we don't know what's around the corner. Please God that we are on our way out of this pandemic, but who can tell? And in the future, there's going to be a legal requirement for us to broadcast our meetings, not like it was in the past where it didn't really matter that much. So it's a lot of money, of course it is, but and we need to be brought up to date. Going back to Councillor Evans, he said about the policies, and that's part of Scrutiny's job as well, is making policy. And so hopefully he can have some ideas in the future when we think about policies which need making. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Right, just two things. One, the audio system that we have got, I rather thought, I don't know whether you thought as well, that we did have that one upgraded. I'm sure we did. And funnily enough, when it was upgraded, it was worse than before. But what I would like to see, £80,000 seems an awful lot of money. Now, have they gone out to, I've no doubt they have gone out to ask one or two people, but could we see how many people actually have been asked to quote? Because my goodness, quotes now, they are coming down and down and down because people need the work. So I would like to know where the 80,000s come from. 80,000 is an awful lot of money. The footbridge at the country park. Now, actually, I think that is something that is desperately needed because it can be, and I've thought for years, that it is a little bit dangerous. And I remember the last time I was mayor, we had to, I had a photograph with a life belt because they hadn't got one up, but they got one up now. But I think that is vitally important. And I just wonder whether 40,000 is actually going to pay for it. I don't know how many quotes they've had, but that to me, that is desperately needed. Desperately needed more than the audio system, which we will not be getting into the council offices, I don't think, until probably August, September. We are now still in February. I would like to see all the quotes for that because £80,000 is massive. I do tend to agree with Councillor Evans about the cost. I think that it is a very important thing because so many people do actually tune in to what we're saying, which I think is brilliant. We might talk a lot of rubbish a lot of the time. And actually, my Scorford Parish Council, I've said to them, have a great row next time so we can be on the telly. So anyway, I feel very strongly about this, that definitely that the bridge definitely wants repairing as quickly as possible. I don't know whether anybody knows whether it's been started, but if it has, obviously the quotes there, whoever's doing it, I don't know, but I think we ought to see more of these quotes for things. That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Lumley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I hope you're keeping well. I know you've been doing the job quite some time now, so well done. I would, in principle, I would like to support this motion 2.1 to 2.7. I have to agree in part what Councillor Carter, Holmes and Evans have said, that I am concerned on the angle of the audio visual equipment, that it is a high amount of money. And my angle is, you know, whoever supplied us with that equipment to actually do the job should be called back to us to actually say, this hasn't been working properly. We've spent a hell of a lot of money on this. It needs to be sorted out for free. I don't think we should have to pay up to another £80,000 on a software upgrade of it. I think that's wrong. So I have to agree with those three councillors on that. I think it is a waste of money. It needs sorted out. I think we've got to be a lot more, answering people back and suppliers back and saying, I'm sorry, this is wrong. That's number one. Number two, I'm very pleased that the Country Park Bridge is being done. I agree with Councillor Holmes was just there that it is urgent, and I've been lobbying it with Councillor Pam Posnett and Councillor Glancy for some time. But since 2017, I've been asking for the town centre to be refurbed. It's looking very tired. Parts of it look awful. If you go up Windsor Street, you've got awful blue turquoise bush shelters. There's just, it really does need a refurb. And I've heard from the press even before this meeting that I think some money now is going to be allocated towards that. I mean, I've been asking for this for now 4 years. Every year I have actually voted for this funding. It doesn't seem to happen. What my constituents are telling me is that all of the car parking meters in all of our car parks are about at the end of their actual lifespan. They don't give change. They're always breaking down. I've called for payment on exit. It would help people in the town centre just to go back and relax and keep coming back after an hour to put more cash in, and only accept change, although they can go online, but a lot of elderly people don't know how to do it. I just hope, if I do support this tonight, these things do get done, because I'll be very annoyed by this time next year if we aren't. And I have to say as well, because of the crisis we are in the whole of the town centre and all of these shops closing, we have got to really start to look at how we're going to support retailers and ask them to come back to us. And that's all for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lumley. I see Dawn Garton's hand up. Dawn, do you want to add?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to respond to the comments about the audio-visual equipment to just make it clear that it's not an upgrade to the existing system at all. It's a complete replacement. Because obviously what you had before was just audio equipment, and this is obviously audio and visual, which will enable those hybrid type meetings to take place. So it's a lot more sophisticated than what you had before. So it's a complete new system. It's also gone through a complete proper procurement process. I was just trying to find out the numbers, but there was a lot of interest in that procurement. We had quite a long list, which was then taken down to a short list before we got down to a preferred supplier. So it did go through all of those proper channels, supported from IT to property was supporting, and the Welland procurement unit. So it's been quite a thorough process, all led by Natasha Taylor, who I'm sure can add more information on that. But just to assure you that, it has been a proper open market tender.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor Pritchard. Seems to have disappeared off my screen.
We've got Councillor Freer Jones.
Right,
well.
Councillor Freer Jones. Oh, hello, is that Councillor Pritchard?
Right, thank you.
Yes, yep. Yes.
Great, thank you. When I received the draft budget, as in general, I was very impressed with the work that had gone in to the housing revenue account capital programme, and I'm quite very much content in the way that that's going, even though I would like to see, and it may come because of the change, a sort of a plan over the next two years. My first point is, I cannot understand for the life of me why we've thrown in revenue capital with count housing capital in the same vote. I'm completely perplexed about that one. Anyway, I'll move on to a couple of things.
Would you like an answer to that?
No, because it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You know, whatever the answer is, it doesn't make sense really. The pub grant, I recognise the majority party's right to have policies, but I do think the word I broke down here, I think that you'll find that this will become problematic. The other point I would make, there has been some talk over the last 2 years about unitary authority, and some people are opposed to it. And I think at the last briefing, the leader said it's not going to go away. Well, I think last year we paid, was it £250,000 for a new accounting system? And in this year's budget, we've got 251,000 for various IT and website upgrades. And they will be the same upgrades that are going on at Blaby, Loughborough, and other places. And then you throw in the 80k for the audio visual, we are spending over £530,000 over 2 years in just being Melton. In other words, in just being a council, which takes money away from administration. And that's all I want to say on that. But it does give me, I don't like the idea of the two things being thrown in together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Frere-Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say a point about the audiovisual equipment, but I think Dawn has answered that quite aptly, really. There were 11 people that had put forward a bid, and 5 were rejected due to cost. There were a few more put forward, and 1 was the closest to the cost. So the equipment that we were actually looking for to make us up to date and current in terms of what we need to do in terms of hybrid meetings is that the quote that we went with was for the least expensive option. It was something when we first did this, and I don't know if you can confirm, Dawn, but when you did your when you've done your many updates on finance and you've opened it out to all of the council and you did an update to scrutiny, wasn't this item on there?
You're quite correct. It's been in the programme as a proposal for some right the way through the whole consultation process.
So at any point, any councillor could have come back and asked any information about how much we put in the budget for it, how much, and about the quote process and about what was going to go into it at any time.
That's correct.
So I'm right in saying that. Okay. So, sorry.
I think the original estimate when we started the process was 100,000, but that came down when we scaled back some of the criteria to try and get that more affordable.
And I remember at cabinet briefings and at cabinet meetings, I queried the amount because I said that there's a lot of options out there in terms of tech, and I did query that £80,000 was a lot of money in terms of what a system is. But when we've gone out to the market and we've asked the market, actually £80,000 is quite a reasonable amount of money for a system that we need to do the complex stuff that we want to do to support the community and engaging with our meetings and to get us out there in terms of the public. So, and it is a capital programme. So talking about what we're doing for the community and what we're doing to help people who are on low incomes and need our support, this is a capital programme, not a revenue programme. We're doing a lot of stuff in terms of how we're engaging with the community. We're engaging with charities. We're looking at grant funding. I know Pranali's done a lot of work. I know Aisha's done a lot of work. So really we're in 2 different ballparks there. We're not in the same remit. And this is something that we need as a council to take us forward. And it's a future investment. It's not an investment. Technology is not the same as it was. You don't buy a system now and then it becomes redundant. You buy systems now that are online, in the cloud so that they can be future proof and that they can go forward in terms of what we're going to need. So the next term of office, the term of office after that, this type of system will see us through all of that. So this is an investment that we're doing for the future. Equally, I think some things were said about the council meeting with BID and that we don't. We do. Pranali meets with them the BID every Thursday and discusses what's going on currently. I'm on the BID board, Pam Posnet's on the BID board, and we meet regularly and we discuss what's going on. And we also have interaction with the town estate on a regular basis, and we are working on a programme where we can all come together and look at the economic situation within the town, and it's not just the town centre, it's the borough of Milton, and how we can support businesses and how we can improve our shopping district and get the community back in. And that is a complex issue. It's not just a case of what are we doing in terms of a policy, what are we saying in the general public. There's lots of aspects that go into that, which is looking at the car parking for one, which is looking at the shop vacant units, which is looking at footfall, which is looking at being completely safe and safeguarding our community in terms of trying to encourage them back into the town centre, but doing it in the right way and not trying to create another pandemic within our own borough. So there's lots of things that go on. It's not just a straightforward answer that you can ask a full council meeting and expect someone to come back with a snap answer. These things that we've been doing have been in all of the meeting minutes, papers for briefings, scrutiny meetings, scrutiny briefings. These minutes that we put out public for the general public is available to councillors. So if people are reading their minutes and finding this information in there, as we've already stated with Dawn and this equipment, these questions can be answered not live streamed on YouTube, but can be answered in so that we can put out the correct information to the general public when we do come to a full council. So they're the two aspects that I wanted to come back on. So I don't need any answers to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bridges. Councillor Illingworth.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yep.
Thank you. I home in particularly on the audio visual aspect. Having as chairman of planning committee been on the receiving end of its inadequacy on more than one occasion in the past, it's disappointing, but not surprising to hear the criticism of the proposed replacement for some members. I understand that there's never a good time to spend significant sums of money that some people may see as unnecessary at the time. However, on occasions, this expenditure on things such as this become necessary in order for us to keep abreast of changing times. And this pandemic has brought about a change in how we do our business along with every other council. So it's right that we have a system that, as Alison referred to just now, isn't just for today, but is for the future. I presume I'm right when I say that we're not planning to order and pay for this equipment tomorrow in order that it can sit in its cartons for some months, as was implied. I presume that as it's in the 21-22 budget, it will be spent at a time when it can then be installed immediately upon receipt of it. Perhaps I could just have confirmation on that point, and I'll limit my comments to that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's one point I forgot to mention about the audio equipment. It's something that we're looking to install prior to the next elections. So we've got two elections coming up. We've got the PCC election and we've got the county council election, and this system is going to support that as well in terms of what we do during the count and things. So that it will be installed prior to that.
Thank you for that reply.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before I speak, Councillor Evans and Councillor Carter have already spoken, but I'm just, and I think Dawn has also got her hands up, so I'm just checking those first.
You're taking the hands. Could those who have spoken take their hands down? Thank you. Yeah.
I'd like to come back, Mr. Mayor, after Lee, if possible.
Well, we'll see. Councillor Higgins.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say what Alison Freer-Jones said about the bid is there is regular contacts with the bid, which she said, but also the bid sat on the very place board meeting, which was on Monday this week as well. So there's plenty of interaction with the bid, and not just the bid, but those businesses that they represent as well. They've been very fundamental in helping us design the additional revenue grants which some of the businesses have been having. And as I said in the Melton Times the other week, we're in listening mode. And we're in listening mode for, as you know, as a ward councillor, Mr. Mayor, is the council isn't necessarily always the best place to design business grants. So we need to understand how businesses work and how grants will help them. And the bid is a really good partner of that, of how we can set the criteria in a fair way, rather than changing it halfway through, which then can be cast as unfair. The other thing where some members are going, which I find very concerning, how it's coming about in this council, and it's becoming quite a poisonous part of it. We should not just accept blindly what people say without scrutiny, and the person who states whatever they are stating. We should also consider challenging what that statement is, or at least ask for some evidence before it. So, for example, one councillor mentioned about, invoices are coming down and bills are coming down from this 80,000. Well, that's in this is the telecom sector. And COVID-19 has showed that how the telecom industry has become ever more central to how modern society operates. Think about how many people need to work from home and log into the system all of a sudden. Video conferencing is booming, as is file sharing. Now, I've worked in that industry, and I would like to call myself a professional of that industry. It's extremely high demand at the moment. This is just one example. One major company has moved 7,000 agents to be working from home in 72 hours. And Telecom Italia was the one who managed for them to do that. So that was so they could support their business customers and their residential customers. Only last month, British Telecom, BT, has declared that it's pursuing a huge digital growth and is investing so much into that sector. So it's not a case that this particular sector is in necessarily decline. So while also I think Councillor Freer-Jones mentioned the accessibility of the audio-visual system, I think people certainly want to access the council a bit more. It helps, I think, the council be in that listening mode from what residents, when they come back, and how they operate. Now, if this saves, I think Councillor de Bourle and Councillor Carter were talking about fiddling around with batteries and various other things. If that saves that one person's time to get in the audio system, and then all the professional people that are in those planning committees, and this is just one example. So that's the assistant director's time, that's the development manager's time, the planning officer's time, the democracy officer taking the digital recording down and putting the minutes, as Councillor Faulkner always looks after their welfare, is 3 hours of a meeting. So all that time still will come from somewhere, and it's invisible sometimes. So that's where that investment comes from. And where another councillor, I think it was Councillor Pritchett, he mentioned about the rural pub grant. Newsflash, pubs are really on their knees at the moment. I'm not a week goes by that the local landlords and publicans and restaurateurs either converse with me or the team. Some of them are in tears. Now, the rural pub grant was to help diversify their offering, so they could apply to the council maybe for setting up bed and breakfast, because we're trying to boost the tourism, because there's not enough overnight beds in the area. And then when people are in the rural area, they might go to one of the breweries that are in our area. They might go and use some of the farm shops. They might go to Fernley's Ice Cream to see how the ice cream's making, because they've just done some wonderful stuff there at Fernley's, and well done to them. The last thing I'd like to say is this is a budget meeting, and while we get, this is the Conservative run council, so we've presented our budget. to me, the criticisms and the attacks that have come in, well, this is like trying to choose a restaurant and you always get someone who complains at the menu. Well, that's fine. And then you say to them, okay, well, what menu would you like? Oh, I don't really like a Chinese, don't really like an Indian, don't really want fish and chips or whatever. Well, what you suggest to me which restaurant you want to go and eat at, rather than we keep choosing it and you just keep bashing it. There are no amendments here. There are no other proposals that are in front of us. So we only either vote for this budget or you vote it down. If you vote it down, I would like to ask the Section 151 officer and the portfolio holder, if we vote this budget down, what else happens to it? Because there's no other counter proposals here, and I am sure we just have to sign off a budget. So if we had something else, and other opposition parties would have done that, and they would have put their own things so they could be scrutinised as well, rather than hiding behind just throwing complaints, moans and whinges out. And ending on a positive point, Mr. Mayor, I am very pleased that this council is seeking to put funding to support our businesses in the town and the rural area to help those people who've really, really struggled. And I'd just like to commend all those businesses, business owners, the staff, everything who's been working so hard in that sector. So, as I said earlier, Mr. Mayor, some of them have been in tears with me. Well, this council's backing you, and we will keep backing you in 2021 and 2022.
Thank you very much, Councillor Higgins. Now, I've got hands up for two people who already spoken. Natasha, I can't see. Has anybody else want to speak? Who hasn't got it? Who's got a hand
No,
up?
Councillor Graham, there is nobody else indicating to speak.
I've been very lax, but it probably upset a lot of people by allowing everyone to talk a lot. So I see that Councillor Evans and Councillor Carter have got their hands back up again for a second time. You can ask a question, but please don't let's have a monologue that goes on forever, otherwise we'll have to cut you off. So Councillor Carter,
just a quick one, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, fair enough. You're going to have a new audio system. The old one costs over 40,000, right? Can we please, if we go vote this in, to make sure it works properly? The old system used to do recordings, doing. But yeah, if we get voted in, can we make sure it's working properly? We get a maintenance on it for 10 years, a warranty for 10 years. If anything goes wrong in the past, save us money paying out. And also, just a quick one to the deputy leader. I think he wants to talk to a few more shop owners because the people I talk to are not happy at all.
That's enough, Councillor Carter. Thank you very much. Councillor Evans, have you got a question you would like to ask?
A question or a statement is point of order, really.
I don't want to
Councillor Lee Higgins made a point about the opposition not having a budget. He is quite correct. I was in Westcliff and for a long time leader of the opposition. Every year, the chief exec and the leader of the council offered officers help to set up a budget, which I'm sure you have had, the leader and the deputy leader. I have not had such an offer. Obviously, with only 6 members, I would need that offer. You can't tell me you and the deputy leader would by yourselves have set up this budget. Of course you wouldn't. You had officer help. And a courtesy every year in Rushcliffe, every year the chief exec and the leader came to me and said, what officers do you need to do the job? I just therefore find that incredibly. And on the Alison Freer-Jones, I believe if you want to watch, and you've got Pat and you've got Binlos, who were both there, we interviewed a member of BID, we interviewed a member of Town Estate. They made it very clear during that conversation, and Pat, I'm sure, will confirm it because she was listening in. They had not spoken to anybody senior up until November, I think it was, and even that meeting was not minuted in any way. And they felt the communication, and I'm sure Pat will agree, they said the communication was poor and intermittent, and they didn't feel they got anybody to communicate with.
I thought this was supposed to be a question, a point of order. I thought it was supposed to be a question.
It's a point of order. You've made a point which is incorrect.
Yeah, that's it. Now then, Councillor Earl, you've moved this. What anything you would like to add?
Mr. Mayor, can I just state a point of order before moving to Councillor de Burgh?
Yes.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Higgins. All members have equal access to officers, and I'm sure the Chief Executive will confirm my statement or interject what I'm stating. So for Councillor Evans to state that he needs my permission or the leader's permission is simply not true, as ever.
Thank you very much. I think it's, thank you. Councillor Earl, have you got anything that you would like when summing up?
Councillor Graham, before you go to Councillor de Boer, I just wanted to inform you that Councillor Cumbers does have her hand raised.
Oh, Councillor Cumbers, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I wasn't at that meeting. I wasn't listening in at that meeting. Sometimes I go to task and finish groups as an observer. That particular meeting I was not at, and I wasn't listening in, and so you don't bother too much with the facts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cumbers. Councillor de Boer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I honestly think this has been chewed over long enough. The motion has been moved and seconded, and I think we should move to a vote on it.
Thank you very much. It is important, and I was happy to let councillors have their say on this.
Absolutely.
But, let's move to vote, and it will be a recorded vote. So I'll hand over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, as usual, I'll go through your names in alphabetical order and ask you to confirm whether you are for, against, or abstaining on the motions, which is items 2.1 through to 2.7. Councillor Baines is absent. Councillor Bindloss.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Carter.
Against.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Child.
For.
Councillor Cumbers.
For.
Councillor de Burl.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Fisher is absent. Councillor Freer-Jones.
For.
Councillor Glancy.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hewson.
For.
Councillor Higgins.
For to legally set a budget.
Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Illingworth. Councillor Illingworth.
Sorry, just had to unmute myself. For.
Thank you, Councillor Illingworth. Councillor Lumley.
For.
Councillor Alston.
We have to have a budget for.
Councillor Pearson, unfortunately, is still unable to join us, so at this stage he is absent. Councillor Posnett.
For.
Councillor Pritchett.
For.
Councillor Smith is absent. Councillor Steadman.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
And Councillor Wood is absent. Just give me a moment, please, Mr. Mayor. So I have 21 for and 2 against, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So that is carried, 21 for and 2 against. Now with item 8, which Councillor Pearson is meant to move. We feel he may go in favour.
Mr. Mayor, could I just suggest? Obviously, Alan is having difficulty getting into the meeting. He's phoned me once. He's obviously phoned Ronan as well, and I suspect he's been talking to officers. But obviously, those difficulties are still there. Obviously, we've been caught out. You know, Councillor Pearson's a very able speaker, and he was well prepared for this tonight. Councillor de Burl was going to second. I'm going to ask Councillor de Burl if there's any chance he could propose an L second.
Councillor de Burl, are you happy with that?
Yes, Leader. I have to say, Leader, I'm not prepared for this. So it would be a question of reading the paper, and that would be a little bit tiresome, I think, for most people, me included, probably. and give it a go, but it won't be as I would expect it to be presented.
Mr. Mayor, if it's helpful, I'm sure the director could offer us any particular assistance or content that may be relevant once Councillor de Burgh has provided his introduction. If that will be helpful to the council.
I think that would be very helpful. Thank you on this occasion. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I suggest, with Councillor de Burgh's permission, that Mrs. Garton makes a short report with the highlights, and then Councillor de Burgh follows with the proposal. Put it the other way around.
If that's acceptable.
Yeah, if that's acceptable to you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, it is. Yes, anything. Let's get it done. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, before you continue, I just for this item, Councillor Carter had declared an interest, and so if it's okay, I will now just transfer him out of the meeting until after this item. Is that okay?
That's absolutely
Thank
fine. Let him back afterwards. Yeah. Thank you. So Dawn, will you give us an introduction?
Yeah, happy to do so. And I think maybe the Director of Housing and Communities might want to add some key points as well. So yes, so you have in front of you the proposed budget for next financial year for the housing revenue account, which culminates in the rent increase proposal, which is at a level of 1.49% average for all council dwellings. And that's in line with the limitations placed on us by the government as a social landlord. The budget maintains the working balance at the agreed level of 750,000, and you can see in the detail of the report that it progresses a number of the items that were agreed as part of the housing improvement programme, and you can see in there as well in the main report what the impact is on our reserves and balances. And I think, as I've said before, members will be aware of me saying, you know, the key to our financial sustainability with regard to the housing revenue account is the work that is starting and will need to be done on the development of the HRA business plan. And that's quite a big piece of work, starting with the stock condition surveys, which will indicate what needs to be done for our housing stock in terms of capital and revenue, and therefore what the draw is likely to be on the reserves to meet those needs. And of course that business plan will also project forward over a 30-year period of likely rent increases, etc. So matching that expenditure with that income. So that's an important part of the process and will put us in a lot better position longer term to understand the financial health or otherwise of our housing revenue account. As I say, I don't know whether the Director for Housing wants to add anything to pull out any of the key priorities, but that's it in a nutshell.
Very much. Thank you, Dawn. Does the Director of Housing want
Yes,
to add anything? Yep.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, through you, of course, thank you. So just a couple of additional points. Obviously, the Director for Corporate Services has given a very clear summary there. Just to highlight for Council, the adoption of the rent setting policy last summer gave a clear policy framework for this piece of work, and the proposed rent increase is consistent with that policy. Council may also wish to note the increased transparency in terms of service charges, with grounds maintenance and health and safety charges identified clearly on the rent increase notice that will be served on tenants as part of the process. There are, of course, carry forwards in relation to the housing improvement programme works, partly due to the impact of COVID on contractors, but also, again, COVID related, due to the suspension of some works due to the vulnerability of tenants. We'll also pick up in terms of the report, the ongoing impact of void rent loss, but the adoption of a clear void policy and new relet standard in January 2021, together with improved reporting of void performance, shows the commitments to improvements in that area. As the Director states, there's clear reference in the report to the delivery of the HRA business plan, not only with up-to-date stock condition information and the survey starting early this calendar year, but also collating tenant views on their homes to help inform that 30-year business plan for adoption with a really clear programme of works for the next 5 years. And that would be, Mr. Mayor, a major step forward for the Council and our tenants. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Right, Councillor de Boer, would you like to move the 3 recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Andrew and Dawn for that. Yes, the recommendations at 2122, 222 and 223. I'd like to move on the recommendations at 2122, 222 and 223.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Olsen, you're happy to second those?
I'll second those recommendations and withhold any comments until later, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Brown, I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm fully supportive of these recommendations that Councillor de Boer has just proposed and Councillor Olsen has seconded. You know, for once, what a great news story. You know, we had a failing housing service in 2019 or prior to that. And when I worked here, I think I could have told you in 2014-15 it was failing. But people did listen, which, and in all fairness to Councillor Pearson, who's the portfolio holder, we went and seen the chief executive at the time and we got listened to, and we put together a plan. And when I mean we, that was the whole council. And that's a credit to everybody here. And it shows also how scrutiny can work, because scrutiny has played its role in the void management process and improving the void process. And that's really what a good functioning council should be doing and is doing. And I think if we can learn from that, we can move that into other parts and other process and improvement areas within the council. But coming back to the specific point is, it is great to see that we're maximising our rental income, we're maximising our service charge income. And that is very, very important, because you want to have stability, because in past years, many councils suffered from the fact that they thought it was popular to freeze or reduce housing rents and service charges. And when you do that, to try and do improvements and keep the living standards of our tenants up, it's very difficult to do when you're not keeping up with things such as inflation, etc. So well done there. The officers have listened to the service charge request from members, and that has been implemented. Councillor Pearson has led and been a key part of the housing improvement programme, which I know our leader has been involved in quite heavily as well, and also quite open recognition of the challenges coming from COVID, and also the challenges that are going to come down the line when it's around being carbon neutral, around the regulator standards, around some of the stuff around landlord health and safety that's going to come out of the white paper, etc. And I think a lot of credit has to go to the director here, Andrew Cotton. He came in, he had something to work on, and he's taken it by the grafts and nettle, taken it forward, and has done an absolutely fantastic job. And Andrew, I wish you well in everything you do, and well done. And I will obviously sit here, and if this good improvement works, I will be fully supported the whole way through to the end of my term, which has just got a couple of years to go. And you know, what more can be said? But obviously, it's actually one bit of work that we all should be sitting behind each other and saying, actually, we've done very well here working together.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you very much. The bad debt provision of 373,000, is that enough given the COVID pressures? Is that enough going forward?
I will. Can someone, Councillor de Boer, can you answer that, or can you find the answer to why that provision's been set?
Well, I can ask Director for Corporate Services. I'm sure that it's based on facts and a good estimation of what the need will be. But Mrs. Garton, would you like to add something here? Could you?
Yeah, I mean, it will be based on, as the councillor said, it will be based on estimates. It will be in line with what our auditors expect us to provide. It will be based on our historic debt levels and the age of those debts and our history of collection and recovery. I think what we don't know, you know, is where are we likely to head with COVID, and once support ceases for those people that are currently on furlough or self-employed, how that might change, you know, recovery levels. And I think that's a dilemma that many are facing. But all I can say is at the present time is that will be based on quite a detailed calculation that will be signed off by our auditors.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd first like to obviously say some words to Andrew Cotton. I haven't known you long, only met you a few times, and I can honestly say when I heard that you had handed your notice in, I just felt awful, because you have turned around what could only be described, as Councillor before me said, a very poor situation in such a short time, and so much astounding work you've done. And I'm sure where you're going, South Kesteven, are very lucky. I feel I'm a bit of a football fan, and I just feel as though this borough has just lost its star striker. And I just feel I know they offered you more. That's the way of football and council. And I just feel you've done so much. And I know it annoyed, I believe, the leader of the council enormously when I said the green shoots of recovery were there, and they are. But I think that was mainly down to you and your hard work. And I know wherever you go, you will be successful. And I'd just like to take this full council meeting to say that to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lumley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to reiterate what Councillor Evans has just said, really, just thank you, Andrew Cotton, for all his hard work over the last year or so since he's been with us. He's done a great job. He's always been extremely easily contactable, and I think he's done a great job in a very short space of time. And I'd like to say thank you to the other councillors that have also supported this housing improvement programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Andrew, you've got a lot of praise. Our paths were hardly crossed during your time here, but I do appreciate the amount of work you've done, and I'm sure our loss is South Kesteven's gain. So thank you very much on behalf of the whole council for what you've done. Have we got any other hands raised? It's Councillor Higgins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's as Councillor Evans said, Andrew, if you are the star striker, I'm going to get on the phone to Jurgen Klopp, because we need one at the moment. I think we need someone to bang the back of the net at the moment. But anyway, so I do share the other words. I'll leave that for another council for that. But one thing, and I know this is revenue and it's slightly different, but I do want to go on record, because I do have a very regular viewer on here from Somerby. And the work we've done at Westview Somerby, I say it probably a lot of the closed council meetings, and I want to say it publicly. The work we've done at Westview Somerby for those residents has really turned that around, and that's just obviously in one little community. So if that's expanded to other parts. And I know, Mr. Mayor, I shared with you a great story about how with the housing team, how they've supported a resident, and then with that resident, I've referred them to Aisha's team and me and my learning team to help get them out of a particular situation that they were in. And as Councillor Brown said before me, if we can drive down housing costs for individuals, and this is why all public authorities must value affordable housing, and that includes the appropriate weighting to places where we could expand affordable housing, such as Lake Terrace. If we can reduce the costs to those residents, and that they have more money in their pocket instead of going to expensive, poorly insulated homes, expensive energy bills, and all the debt and the misery that debt can bring to a family. And as you saw, Mr. Mayor, the work that the staff did there, and it really made a difference to that individual family and as a whole. And I've just got nothing but praise. Bearing in mind, only a year ago, I did write to the chief executive about this little community. And so it did get turned around. So I think, as Ronan said earlier, let's celebrate success.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Noel, you've moved. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I'd just like to formally second, just to say a few words, Mr. Mayor.
The leader has his hand up, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Well, I've already. If you had said anything first. And I'll do the
Okay, there's kind of no. I've met Andrew. Had the pleasure of working with him on a few small things, and yes, I think he'll be sadly missed when he goes.
Councillor Olsen, leader.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Well, the good news is for Councillor Higgins, he'll be able to tell his Somerby resident tomorrow that we've formally approved now the new audio-visual equipment, so they'll be able to continue to watch us on YouTube or whatever it's going to be. So that's the good news. Just like to remind members, this housing journey didn't just start a year ago. It did start in 2017 when the chief executive arrived. We had no housing officers. We had no neighbourhood officers. The housing department was virtually extinct. And it was through the drive of the chief executive, we started on a long journey, and the basis was put into that. Andrew came along and done an absolutely sterling job. And if we're talking about strikers, Nottingham Forest need him more than Liverpool do. I've got to say that by a long way. But Andrew's done a great job. But there was some great work done before Andrew came, and we're sadly losing Andrew. And I wish him all the luck in the world possible. And he will be missed. But the good work at Melton will continue. And I'm absolutely delighted to lead being just part of a small cog of a team that's turned housing around from virtually no department whatsoever in August 2017. People have forgotten that. They just move on so quickly nowadays. It's been a long journey. And I'm certainly not saying we got there, as Ed and Andrew will both agree, but boy, oh boy, haven't we moved a long way with both their help. So thank you to those two professionals. And also a massive thank you to Councillor Ronnie for putting him on the spot for proposing this tonight. Poor Alan's still trying to get into us, but he's being blocked. I think that's the phrase he's used. I keep getting WhatsApp from him. So formally second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So the motion has been proposed and seconded. I'll hand over to the Chief Executive for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So members, as before, I'll ask you to indicate for, against or abstain. Councillor Baines is absent. Councillor Bindloss. For. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Carter. Oh, sorry, Councillor Carter is absent. Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Child.
For.
Councillor Cumbers.
For.
Councillor de Burl.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Freer-Jones.
For.
Councillor Glancy.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hewson.
For.
Councillor Higgins.
For.
Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Illingworth.
For.
Councillor Lumley.
For.
Councillor Olsen.
For.
Councillor Pearson is absent. Councillor Posnett.
For.
Councillor Pritchett.
For.
Councillor Smith is absent. Councillor Steadman.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
And Councillor Wood is absent, and that is unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
So that has been carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 9, Cabinet Recommendations, Council General Fund Revenue Budget 21-22 and the medium term financial strategy. Councillor de Burl to move.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, as you're all aware, it's been an extremely challenging year for the council's finances. We've come a long way since the pandemic started, and especially since we had our first draft budget last November. Through hard work, some innovative thinking and additional support, government provided through the spending review and the finance settlement, we've managed to balance the budget without compromising our core services. As can be seen from the summarisation in the chart at 4.4.1 of your paper and detailed at Appendix A of the report. I can tell you, in an environment where many councils are cutting their services, that's some achievement. And we have the Director of Corporate Services and a team, and indeed all budget holders, to thank for that. So thank you all. The future, however, still remains very uncertain for our finances. The work on the financial sustainability programme will assist in making sure we plan and prepare for all eventualities. But there are some difficult times ahead. We've no idea what support the government will be providing from 2022, 2023 onwards. What we do know is that businesses and the community will be needing our support as we move into recovery mode following the pandemic. I consider it a priority to have the necessary finances in place to provide the support that will be needed. It's not all doom and gloom, though. One of the measures outlined in this paper at 4.4.3 is a proposal to work with other preceptors to set up a discretionary council tax relief fund to help support residents struggling to pay their tax. And in spite of the need for caution, it's still been possible to build in improvements to town centre street furniture, planting and other options to ensure the town centre remains an attractive place as we come out of the lockdown. This is a tremendous achievement, and I'm happy to move on the recommendations set out in the report. They are at 2.1. I beg pardon?
No, keep going.
Okay. We want the recommendations set out in the report at 2122 44. Sorry, 2122 2324 25. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. Councillor Olsen, would you like to second it?
Yeah, happy to second the recommendations 2122, 23, 24, 25, and I'll withhold any comments till later, Mr. Mayor.
Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It'll only be a brief one after long conversations before. I will be abstaining on this particular motion because I feel once again this council is not gearing this revenue sufficiently to the pandemic crisis. It's not a big point, but it's one that clearly this council isn't listening to, in my opinion. And just on a point of order beforehand, I apologise to Councillor Pat Cumbers. I realised it was Councillor Bindloss who was there. I assumed that communication between the two of them would have been sufficient for her to be aware of the facts of that interview. Obviously, that didn't happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor Leader. I noticed again in this budget that there was no breakdown of pay and non-pay, but rather than say too much about what's in it, I think it's time, and given the situation in the big wide world of hardships, etc., that we start to make sure there's performance this year, that there's some notable achievements that the public are getting for their investment, and particularly the investment in the regeneration staff over the last year. I noticed that the budget is based as an anticipation of a further 75% grant. I'm hugely, by nature, sceptical about the benefit of surveys and of the 15 grand to be paid here, though I can understand that the officers want some form of independent information, and sometimes these surveys are standard nationally. Anything to do with the Food Enterprise Centre is a no-no for me. I couldn't see anything for injecting any gravitas into the planning department. And I noticed that we've got a sundry debtors reserve of 515,000. So there's historical debt collection issues. We've got hardship now, and I will be sort of interested in how much impact that's going to have over the next year. So they're my comments on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. No doubt they'll be addressed when Councillor Bell sums up. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak on recommendation 2.3 with regards to the proposed increase in council tax. For many of you who know me well, I'm much more of a libertarian than a conservative. And to quote Ron Swanson from the sitcom Parks and Recreation, when it comes to cursing, there's only one bad word, and that's taxes. Despite this, I understand when you are elected to public office, you need to take a more realistic and pragmatic approach. We have an obligation to produce a balanced budget, and that council tax increases, when required, are sadly necessary. The last year has been really tough. It's been tough for people like me who've been furloughed. However, there are many people who have lost their jobs and businesses altogether. Tough decisions have had to be made in the budget tonight, but we need to ensure we're able to continue delivering services whilst the public finances have also felt the strain of the pandemic. We need to ensure we're able to provide critical services for the most vulnerable in our community, many of which live in my own ward of Sizenby. We need to ensure that the Community Hub continues with its excellent work over the next few months and that other key programmes continue. We need to ensure that small businesses who have borne the brunt of the lockdown get the help and support they need to see them through to the summer and beyond. Mr. Mayor, every year I cross my fingers when I vote to increase council tax, and I always fight to ensure that we keep it as low as possible. This year will be no different, but as I've said, we need to ensure we balance our books and ensure that we continue the excellent work that officers do in delivering for our local communities. And I urge colleagues to support all of the recommendations before us. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson. Councillor Cumbers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm only speaking because I'm tired of Councillor Evans making allegations or untrue statements about me. I really wish he would have. We're here to discuss finance. He mentioned a particular meeting. First, he accused me of having been there listening in, and I explained I wasn't. And then he accused Rob and I of not discussing it afterwards. We certainly did discuss it. I just wish he would, if he doesn't know something, would he just please keep his mouth shut rather than keep saying things which aren't true. Thank you.
Councillor Bindloss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In reply to Councillor Evans, yes, of course, updates, as Sir Cumbers has just said, were made and have been made all the way through. And indeed, the notes of that particular meeting were available at our last task and finish meeting. So they were there and can be seen. And of course, obviously, you know, everybody has been kept up to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I didn't really want to speak, but from the opposition, which quite rightly at these meetings should scrutinise the budget or challenge them, potentially, as I said before, put forward alternatives, and again, there's no alternative here. But however, again, moan and complaint, my steak's overburnt and I didn't want it like this. Well, it shouldn't be for me here to go back to explain to the opposition, because Councillor Pritchett said, there's no funding for planning. Well, that was agreed in October last year. So there was a 26 grand one-off regarding that, and £12,000 for staffing increases, which potentially could go up to 48,000. We've got the planning review going on, which Councillor Evans is a much valued member of that, and providing some real positive stuff. We've only had our first meeting, and that's what we're looking to do, of how we can improve that. How could the team improve to the stakeholders and the customers there? The other thing that was mentioned as well, which I just thought was a low blow to the officers, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to stand as the portfolio holder, and just people say, well, you know, complaining about investing in the staff for the growth and regen team. Well, hang on a minute. You don't know how hard they've worked to get these grants out and all the other stuff. So that's why we're investing in tourism. That's why we're investing in designing new websites. Melton is not just about pork pies and Stilton all the time. It can be so much more. Let's get these fabulous farm shops promoted. Let's get these overnight beds, which, you know, we've got Twin Lakes down the road that brings people in. We've got all these other fabulous businesses, award-winning businesses. We've just had a Michelin award in Borough on the Hill for the Stag and Hounds. Let's promote that. Let's bring people in. You can stay overnight, go and visit a brewery, go and have Michelin graded food. You can go to March House Farm. You can make your own pork pie. You can go glamping as well. Go onto the Frisbee Lakes, have some great overnight accommodation there, which again, it is nationally recognised. And all we get is complaints and moans. And I'm sorry, you know, that's not the way it's got to be. And just on that with the stuff, I was going to raise it a bit later, Mr. Mayor, but we have had, you know, from an individual quite senior up, and I can't mention who they are because they didn't ask this to go public, but the praise from the businesses that have raised with them for how they have handled the grants and getting the funding out earlier, and it's in the later agenda item, which I will say a few words on. But come on, you know, let's just pat some of the staff on the back who've worked weekends, Sundays, evening phone calls with me at 9 o'clock at night. Then I'm ringing the chief executive, making sure those monies are getting out into bank accounts. Let's keep positive.
Thank you very much. Councillor Child. You're muted, Councillor Child.
Unmute. Yeah, I nearly nodded off there, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would just like to place on record as a former member of the finance team, and I've worked with Dawn and David over the years preparing the budget. It is not an easy task, and they've done extremely well to achieve the balanced budget, because before Christmas it was muted that it was going to be difficult to get a balanced budget, but they've not only done that, and they've included a number of growth items. So I'd like to place on record my thanks to the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor. Natasha, is anybody else who hasn't spoken who would like to speak?
Councillor Evans still has his hand raised, but I think it may be from when he previously spoke. Yes, he's put it down now. So it's just Councillor Orson.
Councillor Orson, who is going to second anyway. Yes, Councillor Orson. Or shall we get Councillor de Burl first, who proposed it? You wish to say anything more?
Who we got? You got Joe with his hand up. Do you want me to speak for a moment?
Yeah, well, I'd like you. It's your paper. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I have to say thank you to all of the councillors who have contributed and positively towards this paper. Councillor Pritchett, as always, has gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, looking for positive contributions. I have to say, he usually does. I think in terms of the issues to potential debt. Yes, there's always a contingency for debt. The thing is, but you never can know about the debt or what it's going to be until it actually arrives. So it's one of those things. Again, the contingency will be based on knowledge of our history, and we really just have to wait and see, I suppose, with it. It's always the case. But other than that, thanks to Councillor Wilkinson for supporting it. And to Councillor Higgins for making his impassioned speech about all the businesses within the borough that are, I know myself, some of them are, and they are, it's an incredibly exciting, or it will be an exciting time for them when we move out of this this situation, because they're all ready to go, and they all offer they all have such a good offering. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Olsen.
Yeah, I'll keep it really brief, Mr. Mayor. I mean, basically, Councillor Child has taken what I was going to say. It wasn't that long ago when it didn't look as though we were going to even get a balanced budget. Things weren't good, but the finance team really worked hard with Dawn, David and others. And yeah, it's come about by hard work. There's no other word for it, hard work and looking at every line there is. I also have to really congratulate Councillor de Burl as well. He has been involved in this decision all the way, in his involvement in the budget all along. He does a great job. He belittles himself a lot. Councillor de Burl is very quiet, but he gets on. He does a great job, and he's got 100% of my confidence. He's a great steward of your money, my money, and residents' money. So very, very pleased to second this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now over to the Chief Executive for a named vote.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, members for, against, or abstain, please. Councillor Baines is absent. Councillor Binlos.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Carter.
Against.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Child.
For.
Councillor Cumbers.
For.
Councillor de Burl.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Fisher is absent. Councillor Freer-Jones.
For.
Councillor Clancy.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hewson.
For.
Councillor Higgins.
For.
Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Illingworth.
For.
Councillor Lumley.
For.
Councillor Orson.
For.
Councillor Pearson is absent. Councillor Posnett.
For.
Councillor Pritchett.
For.
Councillor Smith is absent. Councillor Steadman.
For.
And Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
And Councillor Woods is absent. So that is 21 for and 2 against, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Vote is carried, 21 for and 2 against. Item 10, the Cabinet recommendation for Council Treasury Management Strategy and Prudential Indicators. Now, we have actually got another recommendation to add into this at 2.4, which is to make the linkages to the capital strategy due to the integral nature of how the Council manages its Treasury finances to support capital development. Councillor Burl again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I actually, not wishing to correct you, but I think 2.4 was already on the original paper. That was just missed off the order for the meeting. But anyway, so Treasury Management Strategy. Members, to facilitate the decision-making process and support capital investment decisions, the Council are required to work within a code of practice set by CIPFA, the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. It's called the Prudential Code for Capital Finance in Local Authorities, and it requires the Council to agree a minimum number of prudential indicators. This report outlines the Council's prudential indicators for 2021-22 to 23-24 and sets out the expected Treasury operations for this period and fulfills 4 key legislative requirements. 1, the reporting of the prudential indicators, setting out the expected capital activities. 2, the Council's minimum revenue provision, MRP policy, referred to at 2.1 and 2.4 in Appendix A, which sets out how the Council will pay for capital assets through revenue each year as required by regulation under the Local Government and Public Involvement in Health Act 2007. And 4, no, I think it's 3, sorry, and 3, the Treasury Management Strategy Statement, which sets out how the Council's Treasury Management Service will support the capital decisions taken, the day-to-day Treasury Management activity, and the limitations on activity through Treasury prudential indicators. The key indicator is the authorised limit, referred to at 3.1 and 3.2 in Appendix A, and which is at £46 million. The maximum amount of debt the Council could afford in the short is, that's considered to be the maximum amount of debt the Council could afford in the short term, but which would not be sustainable in the longer term. This is the affordable borrowing limit. The investment strategy referred to at 4. The investment strategy referred to at 4, page 159 to page 183, 5.7, which sets out the Council's criteria for choosing investment counterparties and limiting exposure to the risk of loss. This strategy is in accordance with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government investment guidance. At 1.2, the report meets the requirements of both the CIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management and the CIPFA Prudential Code for Capital Finance in Local Authorities. the council is required to comply with both codes through regulations under the Local Government Act 2003. Mr. Mayor, members, the Treasury Management Code requires the council to approve annually a Treasury Management Strategy. This report, once approved, fulfills that need. So on that basis, I'm happy to propose the recommendations in the report and move on the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4 of the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Orson.
Yeah, very happy to second the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 on page 133.
Does any councillor wish to comment on this? If not, we'll go straight to the vote. Can't see anyone. Chief Executive, shall we take a name vote on it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly will. Again, for, against or abstain, please. Members, Councillor Baines is absent. Councillor Binlos.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Carter.
For.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Child.
For.
Councillor Cumbers.
For.
Councillor de Burgh.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Fisher is absent. Councillor Freer-Jones.
For.
Councillor Glancy.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hewson.
For.
Councillor Higgins.
For.
Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Illingworth.
For.
Councillor Lumley.
For.
Councillor Olsen.
For.
Councillor Pearson is absent. Councillor Posnett.
For.
Councillor Pritchett. Councillor Pritchett.
For.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchett. Councillor Smith is absent. Councillor Steadman.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
And Councillor Wood is absent. Those 23 for, Mr. Mayor.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to item 11, the council tax setting. Now, on this occasion, it's the recommendation that is on your sort of running sheet rather more than the one that was in the original papers, in so much as we are setting the calculations for 21-22, not 201 or 221. So with that, I will pass over to Councillor de Burgh.
That's very kind of you, Mr. Mayor. At last, the final thank you. Council tax setting 2021 to 2022. Members, the purpose of this report is to enable the council to calculate and set the council tax for 2021-22 as required under the Local Government Finance Act 1992. As the collection authority, Melton Borough Council is required to set the council tax for the forthcoming financial year, which includes the council tax set by the parishes in the borough and preceptors, Leicestershire County Council, the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Combined Fire Authority. This report is a complex one. However, it will provide members with the precept levels for precepting bodies and outline the council tax base for 2021-22 in order to establish the council tax requirement for Melton Mowbray. It will also outline the bandy charges for 2021-22 across all precepting bodies. They're shown at the chart at 5.9 in your papers. The Leicestershire County Council values contained within the report have been confirmed following their meeting on the 17th of February. They're shown at agenda item 5.3, as have those of the Police and Crime Commissioner at 5.4 and the Combined Fire Authority at 5.5. Members, it's a regrettable fact of life that even in the current climate, there are still inflationary pressures to factor into our calculations. We have, however, sought to minimise this impact, and that is reflected in the figures before you within the chart at 9.1 within the papers, where you can see the average council tax change for this council is 2.41%, where the average for the whole area when all the precepts are included is 4.69%. I would like to assure you that we do recognise that there will be some in our community who will need support to pay their bills, and never more so than this year. I refer you to agenda item 9, paragraph 4.43, where it was proposed to set up a discretionary relief fund to provide additional help, so there will be support available beyond the normal for those that find themselves in a difficult position. On that note, Mr. Mayor, I move on the recommendation at 2.1 that council note the calculations and set the council tax for the year 2021-2022 made in accordance with the regulations set out in the Local Government Finance Act 1992. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. And Councillor Olsen.
Very, very, very pleased to second 2.1 on page 185, and I'll withhold my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Now we are in really the other preceptors are all autonomous in their own right, so we are only really discussing Melton Borough Council, which we've already passed. But any Councillor Evans, do you want to contribute?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, as you say, the parish precepts is entirely up to them, but obviously the Melton special expenses are up to us, because there is no such thing at the moment as a Melton Town Council. You will notice, surprisingly, and I agree with Jacob Wilkinson, it's important to keep council tax as low as you possibly can. However, you will notice the Melton special council tax is going down. In fact, it will now be at a level below what it was in 2017-18. A phenomenal fact, phenomenal fact. It will now be cheaper to pay your council tax in Melton than it was in 2017-18. Let me say that again. This, we heard from the Cabinet, from the leader, how important investment in the town centre is. And yet we are lowering the council tax for the residents of Melton. Where are we going to get the money from for the town if we're not going to get it in special expenses? I know where that's coming from. It's coming from the general borough council tax. Is it fair that that should happen? I'm beginning to worry about this. And as I say, thanks to Dawn Carton, I got the figures before me now, and I was staggered to see that a resident of Melton will now pay less in council tax in the special expenses than they would have done 5 years ago. It's a phenomenal thing, but I think the division between what we spend in the town centre and what we spend on the borough is very thin and very movable. And I worry about how much movement is being there. I think it's very important, just like I'm sure a lot of the borough councillors do, that we invest in the town council at the moment. But this will not allow us to do that, because the amount of money we can invest is obviously related to the tax we raise. And we are raising less and less each year for the actual town council as such. And that worries me greatly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Holmes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, on the same subject, we can't do anything about parish precepts. We just can't. But I was staggered looking at this. I'm not good with maths, but my goodness, this just doesn't look right at all. I just feel that somehow we've got to look at this again. By the way, for Councillor Higgins, I'm not moaning. I'm just merely thinking, where are we going to with it? Because we know it costs a massive lot more to live in the countryside than it does in the town. And this, in actual fact, what we're looking in front of us now, it proves the point. Excuse me, everybody should be, sorry about this, everybody wants to be living in Melton, because it's just so much cheaper to live in Melton. That's probably why we don't really want any more affordable houses in the rural areas, but that's another story. That is something that I would like people to look at and realise. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Orson, you've got your hand up. Would you like to reply to those two?
I will come in. Councillor Pritchard has just put his hand up, Mr. Mayor, so I will leave my comments until the end.
I can't see Councillor Pritchard. Oh, yes, there we are. Yes, yep. I can't see a
Thank you.
face back. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A point of neutrality, Mr. Mayor and Leader. Yes, fair shares for all. Yes, equitable spending. The council tax base shows 52.25 from rural and 47.25 from Melton. But turning it round to the people of Melton, if there was a town council, there would be an itemised budget of which the 15 town councillors would be involved in. And since 2015, there's been the Audit and Accounts Act, which requires not only audit, of which there should be some internal audit on this, but also a risk assessment, a discrete risk assessment on for the town. And it would be good going forward to meet that best practice. And we recently had, I've looked at the reserves, we've recently had some sort of consultancy. I don't know whether the precept paid for that, for the cemetery that is running short. But sooner or later, if there has to be a cemetery purchased, that would be a town-specific risk, as I see it. And going forward, if there was a unitary authority, and of course democracy is reset on that particular day, it would be better to be in a strong position. And as a point of principle, I don't like it that the 15 town councillors aren't involved in some sort of discreet way in setting this. But there you are. That's my comment on it. Anyway.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Olsen, you wanted to come back.
I've got Councillor Brown now, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I've now got Councillor Brown's hand. Yeah, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's quite important that there's going to be many of the public watching us tonight about how we go about our business, but also trying to comprehend, why we have to raise council tax in, these current and adverse times where people are, losing their jobs, reduced hours, etc. Not going to get pay rises that were probably set out in business budgets and various company budgets, etc., because they won't have the income in which to be able to do that. But I think what we've tried to do is we're trying to raise it obviously to the threshold that we're allowed to raise it, but also try and maintain services that we are going to need to provide to the most vulnerable in our communities. And I think that's very important. And I asked the question at the budget scrutiny meeting, if members will remember, and I asked, we're not going to go ahead with some of the budget proposals and spend from day one. And I was quite pleased that the chief executive responded and said, no, we will hold back and look to see how we come out of the COVID pandemic. And I think it's absolutely vital from all of us that we work together as a team over the next few months. And if maybe we need to stop something because we have another crisis or we need money to fill a hole, etc., that we actually stand back, look at that, review what we're actually doing, how we're going to do it, and communicate as best we can with the community. And I would like to see after tonight's meeting at Orge, hopefully the leaders are already doing this, and I'm sure Ronnie will have, but that we're communicating why we've had to put the council tax up, and not just, oh, we're short of money. That's not the reason. It's because we want to provide good public services. And yes, people may criticize that we don't always get it right, but we do try and get it right. And I know that every single one of the 28 members here want to get it right. We may disagree, we may argue. That's what life's all about. We do that at home, don't we? Our families will do it out in the community, etc., etc. So I'm happy with what we're doing. I'm obviously not very happy, like Councillor Wilkinson, that we have to raise tax because, coming from the background I come from, we don't have council tax in Ireland. We don't have it at the rates and the levels that you have it here. We pay through general taxation. And that is something that I would urge us as well through our MP through the Treasury and through MCHLG is that we, especially us as the ruling group, who our party is in power, lobby and look at reforms into local taxation, because unless we actually do that, we're going to be back here every year having to do the same thing. But credit's due to the officers and to the members involved is that we have got what is probably a low impact budget and a low impact budget financially on our community. But it is unfortunate that we do have to raise council tax. But finally, I'm be happy to support this recommendation and motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to come back on some of the opposition councillors' comments with regards to a town council. There isn't really an appetite for a town council in Melton. I don't think it's ever really had one, because we have, the town estate is operated in a way that town councils perhaps the town estate in other towns would have been absorbed into a town council. Town councils actually cost a lot of money. In Oakham, it costs, £250,000 a year, their budget is. That's got to be paid for by local taxpayers. You say everybody, there are variations in how much people pay and according to which village they live in, but parish councils set their own precepts. Asfordby, I paid tribute to Ronnie. I think it's a 9% decrease in their council tax precept this year. These things cost money, and you would be increasing the burden of tax on Melton residents if you were to have a town council. And I don't think that residents in Melton would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Holmes, you've got your hand up. You've spoken before. Was there anything quickly?
No, it's just. It was just to actually say yes, there was a town council. My relatives were on it, and there definitely was a town council. So just to say that that actually happened, and just to tell Mr. Wilkinson, Councillor Wilkinson, that's all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pritchard.
Just a point of clarification for Councillor Jacob, Councillor Wilkinson. I wasn't suggesting we had a town council. It was the best principles of budget and using the town councils. And I did town councils, and I made reference to if there was a unitary authority and there became town councils as a consequence. I wasn't suggesting there was a town council now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I know that. So you don't want one.
Councillor Olsen, you wanted to say?
Councillor Evans has got his hands up again.
Oh, very quickly, Councillor Evans. You've got a question?
Sorry about that. That was just one that stayed up. I'll lower it.
Councillor Olsen.
Yeah. Well, finally, just make a few comments. I wasn't planning to, actually, because this paper, as you well remember, Melise, normally just goes straight through on a nod, and you'll remember the days when I think it was Matthew who used to dash from County Hall in his car. I'm sure he never broke the speed limit with news of what the County Council had decided to do before we could set the budget. And I can remember days where we just used to have to sit there waiting if it was a long meeting at the County Council. It goes to show how communications have changed so much over the years, I suppose. But reference was made earlier to special expenses. Now, it's not about reducing expenditure, but using reserves, which helps to invest in the general fund. For example, who was it? It was Simon, wasn't it? Yeah, £50,000 is going to go into street furniture. So there we are. That's what it's all about. And so sometimes I do just get a bit confused with the negativity of it all somehow. I get frustrated with it a little bit. So £50,000 going into street furniture. Simon, where are you? I can't spot you anywhere, but you must be somewhere. There he is, waving at me right at the bottom. So there you go. You got what you wanted, you see. And I'm sure Margaret as well, she's mentioned it too over the past as well. That hadn't been picked up. So it's all good stuff there. So very, very happy to second that. And Mr. Mayor, and let's move to the vote. I want my dinner.
Councillor Bell, was there anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to thank Councillor Wilkinson, because I think he addressed some issues there that a lot of lot of folks don't know very much about this, so he's obviously done some homework on it. But thank you everybody for your input into this one. And Councillor Orson, of course, referred to the £50,000 that were mentioned in an earlier paper. Simon, you should get your lick of paint out of that, I figure, which I've heard you talk about on occasions. Other than that, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much indeed. Let's move to a vote.
We moved, and everyone's clear, but it is for the year 21-22. So, Chief Executive, can we move to a vote?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as you clarified, it does refer to the recommendation as written on the order paper. So again, members, for, against or abstain, please. Councillor Baines is absent. Councillor Bindloss.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Carter.
For.
Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Child.
For.
Councillor Cumbers.
For.
Councillor de Burle.
For.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Abstain.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Councillor Fisher is absent. Councillor Freer-Jones.
For.
Councillor Glancy.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hewson.
For.
Councillor Higgins.
Could I just ask a point of clarification? If we don't vote positive for this, this means parish councils don't get their money as well. Is that right, Chief Executive?
There is a point at which the council has a legal obligation to set its council tax. So if one wasn't set tonight, we would have to return and set one before a deadline. And I would look to the Director for Corporate Services. I believe that deadline is March the 11th. But so there is a deadline by which we must legally set a council tax. So we would be reconvening to do so.
That's fine. I'm just so I'm for it. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Illingworth.
For.
Councillor Lumley.
For.
Councillor Olsen.
For.
Councillor Pearson is absent. Councillor Posnett.
For.
Councillor Pritchett.
For.
Councillor Smith is absent. Councillor Steadman.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
And Councillor Wood is absent. So that is 22 for and 1 abstention, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. It's 22 for and 1 abstention, so that is carried. Thank you very much, all of you. Item 12. For this item, I'll see you can move in a second now. Special urgency decision, business grants. Councillor Higgins to move.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is to note. I'm more than happy for debate in the chamber, but also if anyone wants to take it offline, because it is a report to note. So I'll just read a statement out in regards to this. On the 2nd of December, the Borough of Melton was placed into Tier 3 restrictions following the end of the national lockdown. As a result of these new tiered restrictions, the national government announced additional grant funding supporting measures that local authorities would be responsible for giving out to their local business communities. The timescales involved in the release of the guidance and funding arrangements for Tier 3 grant schemes required an urgent decision in relation to the council's approach to delivering the grants. It was not considered acceptable to delay the payments due to this adverse effect this would have on eligible businesses. As we know, cash flow is all important to businesses. As a result, in consultation with the scrutiny chairman, Pat Cumbers, and it was agreed that the decision could not be reasonably deferred. As portfolio holder, I reviewed and approved the decision notice on the 14th of December 2020. A notice of special urgency and decisions was published on the council's website. The decision was able to be implemented immediately so that the eligible businesses received the grants before Christmas. And just on that point, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add on that is today the Chief Executive wrote to myself and the Growth and Regeneration team in some positive feedback he received earlier today from a very appreciative source. And it says that they were very complimentary of the work that we at Melton Borough Council were doing, and the businesses said by far and away, Melton was the place that they had the least issues reported to them and regarding business grants. They were very complimentary about the efficiency of our approach and what we are doing. Just on that, Mr. Mayor, what Melton Borough Council has also done, which some people have been a little bit left behind, but we have sought those businesses such as owner directors and self-employed people who've recently set up their businesses but have been left behind by some national schemes. Melton has took a dedicated case-by-case approach, and I'd like to take this time to thank Nick Sachs, Lee Byrne and Dawn Garton on the grant panel for us reviewing those. And I have had today 2 people who have been successfully in receipt of those, and that their grant has really helped their business to continue during the national lockdown. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's very welcome news. Thank you. Councillor Alston, will you second the motion?
Yeah, very. I thought it was on mute then. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'll second the motion to note, and just very quickly, I was also going to read the same email out that Councillor Higgins has just read out. It came from the MP's office, and thank you to the Chief Executive for forwarding that to Lee, myself, and obviously Lee Byrne's team as well. Just have to say, in my own patch, I mean, obviously Old Dalby Depot's in here. I've got village halls like we all have, and it's tremendous actually the work that's been done. Everyone you speak to who's in business or Frisbee Cricket Club, whoever it is, they're all appreciative of what's been done of Melton Borough Council. But probably more importantly, it's not our money, of course. All we've done is dish it out. It really is the government. Let's congratulate the government on this one. They've done a great job. These grants were made available within days of the emergency being declared last March 23rd, if not the following day, I think. Melton's done really well. I'm really proud of Lee and his team. That's the 2 Lees as well, 1 GH and 1 EE. They've done a great job getting out. A lot of satisfaction out there, especially in Old Dalby, but I'm sure it's the same right across the whole borough. And I'm sure you've got many examples where people have come along and said, thank you to the Borough Council.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. And I'd like to echo that in my patch. We're very grateful for the help that we've had. The only thing I slightly disagree with you on, it's not actually the government's money, it's our money, and somehow it's got to be found in the future. That's so be it. Open the debate. Anybody wish to speak? It's only a matter for noting. No hands raised. I can then confirm that the recommendation has been moved and seconded and noted, but no vote is required. Thank you for that. Questions from members? There are no questions received. Motions on notice, there were no motions received. Recommendations and reports from committees, there were no recommendations and reports from committees received. So thank you all very much. It's been a slightly longer meeting, but I think many of us envisaged, but it is the most important meeting of the year. We get our budget, we now know where we're going for the next 12 months. And I think it is very important that every councillor should have their say on where we go and how we do it. And so this is reflecting of that. So thank you all very much for this evening, and look forward to seeing you at our next full council meeting.